Hello you lovely lot and welcome to my channel. I'm Katie and today we are going to unbox and create with the March UpCrate. As always, we start off with a very gorgeous print and this month's co-captain is My Weird Art. I really like it, there's something kind of cubist about it, right? As we delve deeper, we find the gorgeous supplies that we are provided with this month. We have an entire sketchbook to play with. I believe it's watercolour paper and for the life of me can't remember how many GSM it is, but it's a nice thickness. Speaking of books, we also have the Battle Post, which I quickly skim through now because they're getting quite chunky to just feature a whole video on them. We have a 2B graphite pencil. We have a Sakura Micron and that is in a size 10. We also have some of the Eco line watercolour pens. The featured colours are turquoise blue, black, yellow ochre and pastel yellow. Accompanying those as well are some Van Gogh watercolour paints and I quite like them. They are in the colours yellow ochre, indigo and turquoise blue. With that we have a size 6, I'm going to say a flat edged paintbrush by Da Vinci and that's very nice to work with. And the weird thing in this box is this strange little potion we have. Brush X. Yep, it's called Brush X. It's extinguishing solution for brush pen and ink and it only works with watercolour pens, doesn't work with actual watercolours, and you put a few drops of this on your area where you've worked. Doesn't matter if you've got the neat colour on there or you've dissolved it with some water and it makes it vanish. Might take 1 or 2 applications but does the job. Not that I advocate sniffing your supplies, but it does have a bit of a bleachy smell to it, a bit of a chlorine bleach smell, which makes me wonder if this is a very weak dilution of bleach, because I accidentally got a little bit on my jeans and it ever so slightly lightened them. So maybe when this runs out we do have some scope for making our own, but I'm not going to encourage you to do that either. This month's prompt is Miraculous Creatures, so I thought I'd do a few pictures here. My first one being a kitsune. I thought, why not? I started off by adding a layer of the turquoise blue, which is the Eco line pen, and I'll be honest with you, I thought the paper was a little bit too thirsty for these pens. They pretty much dried up straight away and I know they can kind of come back to life with water, but not quite to the extent I wanted them to. This led to quite a bit of a streaky finish and it took me a little while to get my head around it. However, I did find that using the indigo watercolour, the actual watercolour, did just help to perhaps even things out a little bit, or at least just make it a bit more cohesive. I thought the turquoise green, which was the Van Gogh watercolour, was absolutely lovely to paint in the areas of the trees and the leaves, and again it just kept things in keeping with the colour scheme I wanted here. The turquoise was a little bit on the opaque side, which is quite good for perhaps areas which were a bit streaky, just makes it a little bit more forgiving, and the indigo just bled into that beautifully. I thought I'd build up some layers on the kitsune, so I started off with that pastel yellow and pretty much blocked the whole thing in, and then I went in there with the finer areas using the yellow ochre. Because I'd done such tiny little areas of wanting lighter colours, I thought using a pointed Q-tip would be a little bit more useful than the brush. I'd just got a little bit more control over it. And as you can see, it really is magic stuff. I can't believe how it bleaches the colour off the page. It's really something I've never used before, and I think outside of this UpCrate, I can see it encouraging me to get watercolour pens back out of the pencil cases again, and hopefully perhaps erase some of those problems I encounter with them. For the next drawing, I thought I would do a dragon. They're a miraculous creature, right? Plus we do like a dragon on this channel, so any excuse really. Again, I started off by using the liner, and I found this when using permanent liners, well, bleed-proof liners with watercolour pens, it really is best to get those lines down first, because I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because they are dye-based, but when you go over an area, and it doesn't matter how dry it is, but you go over the area with the liner afterwards, you can get a little bit of streaking, a bit of colour bleed, and I think that's just down to the nature of the ingredients within the dyes in these pens. But saying that though, we do have this magic potion that should hopefully tame some of these areas. Again, I started off using a layer of the Ecoline pens, and you can see again it's just a little bit too streaky for my liking. The watercolour paper is absolutely gorgeous, but I just think it's a little bit too thirsty for these pens, and you don't quite get the even layer you want. Even when you go over it with the brush, it's kind of just reached a point of it's not going to happen, at least for larger areas anyway. Following on by using that turquoise pen, and I thought I would introduce a little bit of the black pen in the bottom corner to try and cause a gradient, but again, it just dried too quickly on the page, but that's okay. That's what the indigo's for, and that caused quite a nice gradient there, so I feel like I recovered it quite quickly. Now, as I mentioned a few moments ago, you can see some of the colours bleeding into one another as soon as anything liquid is applied on top. It can be a bit of a problem, but I think if you're aware of these things, it kind of helps you decide how your piece is going to be. I noticed especially the blue merging in with the ochre rather than the other way around, so I guess some colours are more dominant than others. But hey, none of them are more dominant than the Brush X. I still can't believe and really get over just how effective this is, and I definitely think there's a place for this with other art materials, or at least the other watercolour pens that I have. I thought this time I would give the brush a better try because I've got a larger area to work on where I want to do these details. Now, that blue was quite stubborn at times, and that's okay. It does mention in the UpCrate magazine, I do remember, that it might take a couple of applications, but it should shift that colour eventually. So I was super happy with that, and that left quite a nice base for me to just add a wash of the Van Gogh yellow ochre, just so it looked a little bit more subtle. I'd also added some highlights to the dragon's wing there, but you can't massively tell because I'd used that pastel yellow as a base for it, but I don't know, it doesn't look entirely even. It looks like there's some light catching on it, so I was quite happy with that. Now, I did decide to go over the outline on everything again, but at this point I was quite confident that using those Van Gogh watercolours would help to seal it in a little bit like a regular watercolour would. I guess the binder in there probably makes the pen watercolours, I'm losing my words here, but I guess acts as a bit of a temporary seal so I can quickly go around. And we move on to the third and final picture, and I went for a different style this time. I thought a kingfisher is a pretty miraculous creature because I've only ever seen one in real life once, and it is a miracle to try and take any kind of photograph of them. I thought I'd take advantage of this thirsty paper and pen combination first by using that to create some texture, so some of the areas where it had dried quicker and reabsorbed the pen, that acted as my tonal differences. I also added a little bit of the Brush X on there just to create some textures which my clunky hands wouldn't have done just by using the pen alone. I actually kind of treated this a little bit more like a traditional watercolour and layering things up once I'd got a grasp of how things worked here and what the best way to use them, in my opinion, would be. I felt a lot more confident using these supplies. All in all, it's a bit of a random box. I think, personally, the paper was just a little bit too thirsty for the pens, but beautiful for the watercolours. I think I might give this a go on some mixed media paper, which won't be quite as thirsty. I'm super chuffed I've got to try a magic potion that I guess combats a problem that I frequently come across when I'm using watercolour pens, so that's going to encourage me to use a lot of the ones I've got in at the moment. I quite like the fact we'd got quite a chunky marker as well because we've got some bold colours there, and I'm never a fan of really small liners with bold colours. I feel like they compete a little bit too much with one another. You know what? I really like the paintbrush too. It's a nice paintbrush. I shall look after it and try not to trash it like I do with most of them. It held a decent amount of water and allowed me to flick some paint on the background. But anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. There should be some more videos on screen I think you are going to enjoy, so why not click one of those? And I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and I'll see you soon. Bye!